Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 101 of Settlers of Kalguur League. Today, I'm going to be going through the announcement of the Legacy of Phrecia event that starts on February 20th. Embrace the Legacy of Phrecia in an upcoming Path of Exile 1 event next Thursday, February the 20th. Enhance your build with one of the new 19 Ascendancy classes and shape the in-game experience with the new idol system. By reaching certain level thresholds in the Legacy of Phrecia event, you will also receive pieces of the Autumn Night armor set. Based on Settlers of Kalguur, so it's still going to be building up King's March and the boats and the crops and potential mappers and all that stuff still going to be there. There'll be standard, hardcore, standard solo self-found, and hardcore solo self-found versions. There's also a Ruthless mode, which uses the same Ascendancy classes as non-Ruthless versions, so the 19 that I'm about to go through. This event is not voided. Items and characters will transfer to parent leagues at the end of the event. Upon migration, your character's Ascendancy points will be respec'd, and you'll be assigned one of the core Ascendancy classes. So let's see what the Ascendancy classes are. First up, got Ranger, Daughter of Oshabi. As an Asmeri, the daughter has a great respect for nature, particularly the forest. She shares many of the powers of the Warden of the Magi, as well as being empowered by shrines or utilizing sacred wisps to aid wand attacks. So it looks like we've got Illuminating Wisps, +2 max number of sacred wisps, and +2 number of wisps summoned. And below that, Spell Slinging. Skills supported by Spell Slinger have 50% increased cooldown recovery rate and 50% reduced mana reservation. That's pretty cool. Oath of the Magi. Defenses from equipped body armor are doubled if it has no socketed gems. 60% to all elemental resistances if you have an equipped helmet with no socketed gems. 30% increased max life if you have gloves with no socketed gems. 30% movement speed if you have boots with no socketed gems. Then beyond that, forest tracking, 2% increased attack damage per 450 evasion rating. Rare and unique enemies within 120 meters have minimap icons. Interesting. Roots of the Grove. All damage inflicts poison against enemies affected by at least 5 grasping vines. Inflict 1 grasping vine on hit. Interesting. Woodland Shrines. Trigger level 20 create lesser shrine when you kill an enemy, which has an initial cooldown before it can trigger. And Innate Blessing. Gain a random shrine buff every 10 seconds. So that seems cool. You can do Spell Slinger that poisons everything with Roots of the Grove. Be interesting to just like passively gain shrine buffs, especially if you can still like scale their duration, but the whole in-game system is different. There's no Atlas passive tree, so maybe you can get idols to scale shrine buffs and maybe make it so you can stack up every different shrine. That'd be cool too. You could use Comb's Heart and double the defenses on it. Comb's Roots, get 30% movement speed if you use that, because you can't put sockets in those items anyways. But I really like Spell Slingers, so I could see myself messing with that. There's still 18 to go. The Whisperer is a descendant of Inya of the Pale Court. She travels silently, imbuing her attacks with arcane powers. Investing in your mana is core to taking advantage of many of her abilities. Not a word. 50% increased blind effect, 100% increased stealth, blind enemies on hit. Your mind is destroyed. Increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks at 150% their value. So that's not just one attacks, any attacks. You can scale with spell damage. Have you forgotten? Projectiles from attacks fork and can fork one additional time. There is more. +4 to minimum frenzy and power charges. +1 to max, so you just constantly have 4 frenzy and power charges without any investment. Breathe Deep. 50% increased mana recovery from flasks. Non-instant mana recovery from flasks is also recovered as life. That is wild. So you can have a mana flask that does not end on full mana and just have a ton of life and mana recovery always. Wait a little. Gain 10 rage after spending a total of 200 mana. Cool. And then a group up here going through an infinite pursuit. Intelligence provides no inherent bonus to max mana, but you get +1 max mana per dexterity. And then beyond that, don't panic yet, 100% of physical damage is taken from mana before life. That's insane for a ranger. We know all 50% increased mana cost of skills. Attack skills have added lightning damage equal to 4% of maximum mana. So a little archmage thing there. There's a lot of things that you could do with this. This seems really cool. I think the Breathe Deep is insane, as well as 100% physical damage taken from mana before life. It's harder to get physical damage reduction on evasion-based characters. I think this one would be a lot of fun to play with. Up next, we've got Wildspeaker. The Wildspeaker worships the First Ones, a set of animalistic avatars from Ezomite legend. Choose between the aspect of Feral, First of the Plains, or Sakawal, First of the Sky. Her love for the animals of the forest grants her several abilities that aid her allies in battle. So we've got Feathered Scales, grants level 30 aspect of the Avian, and has no reservation. Then beyond that, 200% increase aspect of the Avian buff effect. Aspect of the Avian also grants Avian's Might and Avian's Flight to nearby allies. Really cool. Flash of Teeth grants level 30 aspect of the cat skill with no reservation. Beyond that, Fearful Symmetry, gain up to maximum number of frenzy and power charges when you gain cat's stealth, +1 to maximum frenzy and power charges. So that would replace the need for the Feral's chest. Got Primal Instinct, 100% chance to suppress spell damage. Just here you go. Minus 15% to amount of suppressed spell damage prevented. So it's not as effective, but spell suppression. So take 35% less damage from spells with that. And it looks like all this up here is kind of linked. 2 ways to get through here. Great Wolf's Call. You and nearby party members share power, frenzy, endurance charges with each other. You and nearby allies have Tailwind. The furthest node here, on killing a rare monster, gain one of its modifiers for 20 seconds. Nearby enemies killed by anyone count as being killed by you instead. Interesting. Scourge of the Wilds. Minions deal 1% increased damage per 5 dex. Increases and reductions to minion damage also affect you at 150% their value. There's a lot of big minion damage nodes in Timeless Jewels, so making use of that with this could be really interesting. And lastly in here is Pack Mentality. Trigger level 20 Summon Spectral Wolf on critical strike. So you can build up a bunch of minions with that. And if Great Wolf's Call means you can give power, frenzy, and endurance charges to your minions that you can stack up using Aspect of the Cat, that could be really interesting. Interesting stuff here. Giving free Aspect of the Avian or Aspect of the Cat's pretty insane. So you could be able to have that while leveling, essentially. And that's the 3 options for the Ranger. Very unique, interesting things. Next up is the Marauder, Antiquarian. This Karui collector hails from the port of Gekanu. Over the course of his long career, he has traded for historical artifacts, many of which can employ in combat. Choose from Kalguuran relics, Karui trinkets used by legendary chieftains, or equipment from one of the great Karui enemies, General Marcus Lioneye. Exhibit 122, Lioneye's Hair. Your hits can't be evaded, 50% reduced dexterity. Lioneye's Bow gives far shot. And Exhibit 126, Lioneye's Shield. Minus 100 physical damage from projectile attacks. Gain 50% chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value. Okay, so you have to go through Lioneye's Hair to get any of those. There's a central node and then 2 beyond it with all these. So Exhibit 24, Goliath Knuckle, you have no intelligence, plus 150 strength. Turtle Shell, 1000% increased stun and block recovery. And Whale Tooth Bangle, 1% increased duration per 100 strength. Building around no intelligence is a little rough, but it's definitely doable. You can stack a lot of duration with strength in there. Then we've got Exhibit 377, Kalguuran Armor. Gain ward instead of 50% armor and evasion rating from equipped body armor. Ooh, nifty. Starlight Reflector. 100% faster restoration of ward. 100% increased global defenses. Okay. And then Exhibit 24, Runic Tablet. Gain adrenaline for 10 seconds when ward breaks. Seems like there's a lot of random stuff on this one. I've never really done much with ward. Like, that could be interesting to mess with. Defensively, I think the duration per 10 strength is very unique. You could build around that. but you can't use any skills that require int in any way. Hits cannot be evaded, and you could probably stack a ton of ward with this stuff. Seems interesting. 50% block chance as a baseline, also huge. Next up, the Behemoth. Abhors magic and the users of it. The truest form of combat should be hand-to-hand, up close and personal. The Behemoth gets progressively stronger throughout combat, gaining Rampage, Fortify, and Rage. Alright, a melee class. Let's see, starts here. So you're forced into a Rampager. 10% increased character size, spell skills, deal no damage, your spells are disabled. Melee hits count as Rampage kills and gives you Rampage. Alright, that's interesting. So then from here, there's a couple ways you can go. Into Dire Rampart. Melee hits fortify, regenerate 0.2% of life per fortification. Beyond that, 10% max fortification and 1% increase attack speed per fortification. So that's some nice buffs for fortify. Get a bunch of life regen, attack speed from it. Going to the top is Sheer Fury. 15% chance that if you would gain rage on hit, you instead gain up to your maximum rage. 15 to maximum rage. That's very nice. Then beyond that, Fueled by Hate, 50% increased rage cost of skills. Vol attack skills you use yourself cost rage instead of requiring souls. You cannot gain rage during soul gain prevention. So you can just use Vol skills as long as you have rage. That's nifty. Final Blow. Plus 10% to unarmed melee attack crit chance. Your crit chance is lucky while on low life. Okay. Mental Conditioning. Plus 4 mana per 4 strength and power of purpose. 80% of max mana is converted to twice that much armor. Interesting. So you're going to lose a bunch of your mana but gain flat armor because of it. Then beyond that, we've got 2% increased attack damage per 450 armor. 10% chance to defend with double your armor for each time you've been hit by an enemy recently, up to 30%. Okay. Incorruptible armor also applies to chaos damage taken from hits. Okay. So attack damage per 450 armor. That's deep in here though, so you can't get Steel-Willed and Tireless Frenzy. I think my go-to with this would be to get Tireless Frenzy with Sheer Fury. Just take these 4 nodes right here. Get big Fortify. Can't do spells, you get Rampage, big rage stacking. And then if you're more adventurous, there's stuff to play around with here for sure. Up next, Ancestral Commander. This Marauder calls the spirits of Karui ancestors to his side to both protect him and strike foes down. Be comforted in the knowledge that you have generations of predecessors watching over you. So we've got a node here split into 5. Trigger level 20 Summon Spirit of Comb when a totem dies while a unique enemy is in your presence. Spirit of Kahutura when you take a critical strike from a unique enemy. You can only pick one of these. Spirit of Utula on taking a savage hit from a unique enemy. Spirit of Kilowava when you block damage from a unique enemy. And Spirit of Rakiata on critical strike against marked unique enemy. So there's very unique conditions for each of these, but it probably summons one of the Trial of the Ancestors leaders to come fight for you. Let's see, next be this node, Forest of Ancestors, plus 1 to maximum number of summoned totems. 20% of damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem's life before you. So if you stack enough totem life, that could be a bunch of defense, can get an extra totem, which is always nice for totem builds. Ancestral Endurance, plus 3 maximum endurance charges. That's a huge defensive buff. And beyond that is Ancestral Defiance. Gain 15% of missing unreserved life before being hit by an enemy. So this would be really nice if you're doing any kind of blood mage stuff where you've taken damage, you can just gain life before being hit. And if enemies are doing lots of small hits to you, you're just going to keep putting the life back to full. What else do we got here? Toughened Skin. Action speed cannot be modified to below base value. Movement speed cannot be modified to below base value. Armor from equipped body armor is doubled. There's a lot of notes on this. Call of the Ancestors. 30% reduced Warcry speed. 120% increased Warcry cooldown recovery rate. Interesting. Nearby corpses explode when you Warcry, dealing 12% of their life as physical damage. Your Warcries open chests. Okay, you have to go through the reduced Warcry speed. An extra cooldown to do that. Born Under Fire. Nearby enemies convert 50% of their physical damage to fire. That's insane. Well, then there's that big word, nearby, there. Ancestral Reach. Strike skills which target additional enemies can do so from 50% further away. Non-ball strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. That's really cool. Ancestral Echo. Strike skills also target the previous location they were used. Ooh, that's really cool as well. But there's a lot of different things you can do with the Ancestral Commander. This Born Under Fire makes it so you don't need as much armor to mitigate physical damage, and if you were to stack 90% fire res, like, you're just gonna take way less physical damage because it's gonna like go into fire. You're actually going to be able to reduce it, and then you can stack that with max endurance charges as well, so that you've got insane reductions to physical and elemental damage. That's really cool. I really like the Ancestral Reach and Ancestral Echo. If I were to play with this, that's probably what I want to mess with here. Your strike skills will like go off twice, and you get the extra reach plus one target. It's really cool. Really cool. The Ancestral Cry, I believe, exerts attacks so you can target additional nearby enemies. I don't know if that's still the same though anymore, as war cries have received changes. Cool stuff. On to Shadow. The Surfcaster is simply a chill guy. His home is with the sea, for which he attunes to gain control of the cold and lightning elements. An expert fisherman himself, you can reap great rewards for holding a fishing rod if you can find him one. Rewards for holding a fishing rod. Screaming Reels. 50% more cast speed while holding a fishing rod. All hits are critical strikes while holding a fishing rod. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Sea Legs. 30% cold and lightning resistance. Critical strike chance is increased by overcapped lightning res. Evasion rating is increased by overcapped cold res. So overcapped resistance is the amount by which your resistance is higher than your maximum resistance. Interesting. You are touched by a tormented illegal fisherman, granting 20% increased damage, 30% attack speed, 30% cast speed, 30% movement speed. Well, that's insane. You could get that as your first Ascendancy while leveling. That's crazy. You'd have to do work to get yourself a fishing rod if you wanted to mess with that, but Ghost of the Deep is cool. Then for everything else, you must go through Stormy Seas. 100% of lightning damage converted to cold damage. Your cold damage can shock. Interesting. Then there's 4 different nodes beyond that. Enemies you kill are shocked. Shocks you inflict spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. Brine Bound. 50% chance to freeze enemies for 1 second when they hit you. Enemies you freeze remain frozen for at least 1 second. There's Glacial Wave. Enemies chilled by your hits lessen their damage dealt by half of chill effect. Enemies chilled by your hits have damage taken increased by chill effect. Ooh, that's really cool. Then Changing Seasons. All damage taken from hits can chill you. The effect of chill is reversed on you, which would give you more action speed. Glacial Wave seems really strong. Changing Seasons requires you to get hit. 100% of lightning damage converted to cold. So, some very unique stuff there. So if you had a one-handed weapon that had cold and lightning damage on it, it would instead both be cold damage, therefore increase the scaling you could get out of cold damage, but also you open up all of the lightning spells to do cold damage instead, still be able to shock, and maximizing chill effect is big defense and extra damage working like shock. This is really cool. A lot of unique stuff you can do with this. And then you have this Ghost of the Deep thing, just like 30% extra movement speed while you're leveling a character, especially if this is your first one. I think that's what you would want to go for first, without a doubt. And this fishing rod stuff's kind of a meme, but there's some pretty big buffs there. Surfcaster. Simply a chill guy. Ha, funny. Servant of Arakaali. Tempted by the Spinner of Shadows herself, the servant does the bidding of the queen. Arachnophobes stay away because the servant can both raise spiders to fight alongside or embrace aspect of the spider to cover enemies in webs. Right on. So we've got Thread Spinner. Grants level 30 aspect of the spider. That's insane. As a first Ascendancy node you can get, that's really cool. Enemies affected by your spider's webs deal 15% reduced damage and have minus 15 to all resistances. Whoa, that's really strong. Silk Dancer. Whoa, this is some crazy power right here. Fatal Bite. Gain 30% of physical damage as extra chaos damage while at maximum power charges. Chance to gain a power charge on hitting an enemy affected by a spider's web. Oh my god. Like Poison Blade Vortex, just like max power charges, crits. Whoa. Malevolent Strands. Grants level 15 Envy skill. Envy has no reservation. I think that gives you flat chaos to... I don't know if it works for spells and attacks. Might be for both. That's crazy. Weaver's Contrition. Grants level 20 Penance Mark. I don't remember what that does from Affliction League. Broodguard. Trigger level 20 Raise Spiders on kill. Oh, that's behind Skin Crawlers. Minions have 50% chance to poison and 10% chance to inflict withered on hit. Whoa. And then you can just raise spiders that will inflict withered and can poison themselves. Neurotoxin. Minions have 5% to crit multi per withered debuff on enemy. Minions base attack critical strike chances equal to the critical strike chance of your main hand weapon. Well, this one just seems crazy. There's a lot you can do here. Whether you just want to play a poison build yourself or mess with minion stuff. And oh man, you just get level 30 aspect of the spider in Act 3. Big defensive buff. Envy. Oh man, I kind of want to just like do this. This is extra chaos while at max power charges. Huh, very, very cool. I like that. Up next, the Blind Prophet. Little is known about who the Prophet worships, but it is suspected to be a subterranean evil. Blind from a young age, the Prophet has heightened their other senses through years of training, gaining prowess in projectile attacks, stealth, and inflicting curses. So it looks like here you're forced into Sightless. Base critical strike chance for attacks with weapons is 12%, and you are blind, which gives you less accuracy and evasion rating. But you don't need to worry about the base crit chance on your weapon. Beyond this, we've got Directionless. Projectiles have a 50% chance to return to you. Projectiles are fired in random directions. Okay. Beyond that is Careless. Skills fire 2 additional projectiles. Whoa. Then there's Restless. Non-aura curses you inflict are not removed from dying enemies. Enemies near corpses affected by your curses are blinded. Enemies killed near corpses affected by your curses explode, dealing 5% of their life as physical damage. Okay. Beyond that, your curse limit is equal to your maximum number of power charges. Faceless. Doesn't say that you need to have that many power charges. Just like you're starting with 3 power charges, so you could inflict 3 different curses right off the bat with this, but this would be a 3rd Ascendancy node on this chain. Have to go through Restless, but you could get a Bane with a lot of different curses there, and if you use Bane, that's not an aura curse, so they would stay on the enemies and nearby enemies would explode, and that'd be really cool. It doesn't make use of the base crit for attacks there for anything if you wanted to use Bane with the extra curses. What else we got? Shapeless. 50% chance to gain Elusive on critical strike. Elusive is removed from you at 50% effect. Well, that's really cool, actually. So it doesn't have to go all the way to 0, so you can gain it back and it still be more effective. I like that. Lightless. 5% increase max life per Abyss Jewel affecting you. 5% increase max mana per Abyss Jewel affecting you. Okay, that's awesome. Formless. Trigger level 30 Shade Form when hit. 30% increase skill effect duration. Alright, there's also ways that you can apply curses on hit, from Delve Rings, Influenced Rings, Corruptions on Gloves, but everything has to go through Sightless here. So you are blind. And if you're blinded, you can get a Brutal Restraint with Nasima on it, which gives you 25% more melee critical strike chance while blinded. This also puts blind on you, but this would be really strong to work into that character. That only works for melee though. Then you can also get the Vegan mod and put that on a weapon. Hits cannot be evaded. And then you don't have to worry about the accuracy reduction from being blind. And then your base attack crit is 12%. It's not hard to get to crit cap with that. Then you'd grab the elusive probably. And if you wanted a lightning strike, you could do that with additional projectiles. And the lightning strike fires in random directions. And that'd be really cool. Very cool. Moving on to the Witch. Become a Harbinger, manipulating the balance of reality itself. The Harbinger specializes in time magic as well as summoning Harbinger allies from their homeworld to assist you in combat. As a bonus, you also get to fly and be blue. Okie dokie. This one doesn't force you into anything. 40% cooldown recovery rate node with grants summon greater Harbinger of Time skill. Beyond that, buffs on you expire 30% slower, debuffs expire 30% faster. Beyond that is grants summon greater Harbinger of Focus skill. Immune to curses while channeling, unaffected by chill while channeling, unaffected by shock while channeling. That's pretty nifty. 100% increased area of effect of hex skills. Temporal Chains has no reservation if cast as an aura. That's cool too. Then there's 30% increased ES recovery rate and increased mana recovery rate with Summon Greater Harbinger of the Arcane skill. So there's a lot of stuff not being told here, like what these skills do. And you couldn't get all 3 of the Greater Harbingers, but you could get 2 of them. 40% cooldown recovery rate's pretty insane. Immune to curses, chill, and shock while channeling. That seems really strong. That's the thing that's kind of pulling me towards this, is make some kind of channeling thing with this, with Tim Chain's aura, and maybe go after whatever this Harbinger of the Arcane is and see what that does. But you could also, there's also a cast while channeling thing that could benefit from the cooldown recovery rate. That'd be cool. There would be interesting stuff to explore there, but kind of depends on what all these Harbingers do. On to the Herald. The Herald sees calamity in the future, hopefully only for your enemies. She forsakes auras to go all in on Herald skills, empowering them beyond simply being minor buffs. Alright, let's see here. Looks like you're forced into coming calamity. Your aura skills are disabled, 200% increased mana reservation efficiency of Herald skills. Okay, and then you're forced into picking one of these. 100% buff effect to any of the Heralds with an additional buff to physical damage reduction on Herald of Purity, max cold res, Herald of Ice, max fire res, Herald of Ash, max lightning res, Herald of Thunder, and 75 chaos res on Herald of Agony. But you can only pick one of those. As a witch, I think Herald of Purity buff effect would be pretty big. That'd be for more like a minion type build. And then to the left, there's 2 one-off nodes. Damnation. Gain additional elemental damage reduction equal to half your chaos resistance. Maximum endurance, frenzy, and power charges is 0. Well, that seems kind of cool, especially if you get this chaos res buff, which would be 37% reduced elemental damage taken on top of your resistances, but no endurance, frenzy, or power charges as a result. And then I guess if you had negative chaos res, you would take additional elemental damage maybe? Retribution has 20% chance to gain elemental conflux for 4 seconds when you kill an enemy. Elemental conflicts combines all 3 conflux effects into one and applies ignite, chill, and shock on hit. So that's a 20% chance to gain elemental conflux for 4 seconds on kill. So not really useful against big boss fights, but gives you shock, ignite, chill pretty much passively if you're clearing fast. Then on the right side, plus 5% to critical strike chance of Herald skills. Herald skills have 50% increased area of effect. Scourge has plus 2 max number of Sentinels of Purity, plus 25 to maximum virulence, which is what stacks the Herald of Agony, the Agony Crawler. Minions deal 66% increased damage while you're affected by a Herald. And then there's another node called Apocalypse, which gives plus 3 to level of all Herald skill gems. So you can do some fun Agony Crawler stuff here, without a doubt, especially with the 200% mana reservation efficiency. If you wanted to do like a 6-link Herald of Agony to buff the Agony Crawler, you could do the same with Herald of Purity. And as a witch, additional physical damage reductions, really nice. And then you have those synthesis rings that give buffs further that you could use to push these in certain directions. Very unique, would be a lot of fun to play around with, without a doubt. And the Herald. Next up, Bog Shaman. This witch has taken up residence in a faraway bog, away from the putrid stench of humanity. She has brewed a set of toxins that she administers to herself daily to gain potent skills in exchange for but minor drawbacks. Alright, start here. You can go to these. These ones are deeper in. This one's layered. And one up here. So let's see what we got. Venom Drinker. 100% chance to be poisoned. Plus 5 to all max res while poisoned. You cannot be poisoned while there are at least 5 poisons on you. But 5 all max res. Not elemental max res, all max res. Interesting. Belfin. Nearby enemies' chaos resistance is 0. Chaos resistance is 0. Okay. Eerie Silence. Grants level 20 Pacify skill. Pacify curses all targets in an area having no effect at first, but causing them to deal no damage once 60% of the curse's duration has expired. Enemies pacified by you take 30% increased damage. Ooh, and the last 40% of the curse's duration, they deal no damage. Interesting. Rotten Core. Your skills deal you 100% of mana spent on upfront skill mana costs as physical damage. Skills gain added chaos damage equal to 40% of mana cost if mana cost is not higher than the maximum you could spend. So you take 100% of the cost as physical damage, but they gain added chaos damage equal to 40% of the mana cost. That seems really strong. And if you have armor, then you can just mitigate that. Ah, but this is behind Vile Imprecations. Nearby enemies have malediction, reducing the damage dealt and increasing damage taken, and gives increased reservation efficiency of curse aura skills. You have to take that before you can take Rotten Core. Nightblood. Skills gain a base life cost equal to 25% of base mana cost. Spells you cast yourself gain added physical damage equal to 80% of life cost if life cost is not higher than the maximum you could spend. Spells you cast yourself gain added physical damage, but comes with the life cost. Okay, interesting. Toad Pact. It's minus 20 to all elemental resistances and giving 50% increased projectile speed, AoE, and skill effect duration. That's not a big cost to pay there for all that AoE and duration. Interesting. Pandemic. Lose 5% of life per second if you have been hit recently. So that lasts for 4 seconds? Yikes. But it gives 40% more damage over time. Whoa. And then there's Sanguine Power. Removes all energy shield. Gain max life instead of max ES from equipped armor items. Minus 3 max life per level. Alright, this is cool. So you turn your ES into life, but you don't gain as much life per level. So if you were to stack armor ES gear with this, you turn that ES into life, and you get a bunch of armor to deal with the Rotten Core, and then you give your skills a bunch of chaos damage, but that's based on the mana cost. This one's weird, but there's definitely some busted stuff in here, I'm sure. If I were to play this, I'd for sure want to mess with the Sanguine Power, and then try and make either Nightblood or Rotten Core work. But you would have to have physical damage reduction for Rotten Core, or else you're going to take a ton of damage. And maybe you could work in both of these, Nightblood and Rotten Core. I wonder if like Seismic Trap, if that counts as a spell you cast yourself. I would imagine probably not. If so, though, you could give the Seismic Trap a bunch of extra flat fizz and flat chaos to scale the poison with the Seismic Trap. Very unique. Very unique. A lot of these are crazy. Onto the Duelist. We've got Gambler. Are you the kind of player who likes to play against the odds? This is the perfect class for risk lovers who want to experience the highest of highs and potentially the lowest of lows. The Gambler specializes in betting on a high payoff and having Lady Luck take control. Alright, let's see. Risk aversion. 50% chance to avoid ailments, 50% chance to avoid being stunned. That's pretty insane. Growing Accumulator. 15% chance to deal triple damage, 30% chance to deal double damage, deal 25% less damage. Spectacular Parlay. Your critical strike chance is lucky, damage with hits is unlucky. Well, I guess that seems risky, doesn't it? Don't know about that. Overly confident. Damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you are on low life. That's interesting. Then beyond that, it's heads and tails. Chance to block spell damage is lucky. Attack block is unlucky. Or chance to block spell damage is unlucky. Attack block is lucky. So you would want heads if you have a bunch of evasion but are trying to scale spell block. And you would want tails, I guess, if you have spell suppression and want better attack blocks, so you probably don't have a lot of evasion. Interesting. Risky exploit. Minus 25 to all res. 50% chance for elemental resistances to count as being 90% against enemy hits. That's a 50% chance. Interesting. That's nifty. And reversed odds. Hits have a 50% chance to treat enemy monster elemental resistance values as inverted. That's interesting. I gotta look in game here now. There is this mastery. The hits have a 25% chance to treat enemy monster elemental values as inverted, so I imagine that would stack there. So it'd be a 75% chance to invert resistances. Then elemental equilibrium. No, this only applies or removes exposure. Now, it doesn't give monsters extra resistance for what you hit them with. But if you were doing this, you wouldn't want to lower enemy resistances at all. You'd want them to be as high as possible, so you could invert them. So you wouldn't want to use the curses to lower resistances. You wouldn't want to get exposure. You'd want to stack elemental penetration, like with forces of nature, and use like a mark for crit and things like that. It's really cool. I think if I were to play this, I'd probably want to use reversed odds. Could be some fun Wild Strike stuff in here with the elemental equilibrium even. I really like this risk aversion. It wouldn't be hard to get elemental ailment capped and stun immune as well. Interesting stuff. For sure. The Paladin is a duelist who has taken the righteous path. He serves to better his allies in combat, protecting them from danger through link and aura skills, as well as taunting enemies. Alright, so here we can be granted level 30, Discipline, Determination, or Grace. It's a pick one. We've got Anointed Champion. You have Consecrated Ground around you while stationary. Effects of Consecrated Ground linger for 4 seconds. Okay. Light of Divinity. Nearby enemies take 25% increased elemental damage. Okay. Elemental Valiance. 25% chance to trigger level 20 Summon Elemental Relic when you or nearby ally kill an enemy or hit rare or unique enemy. Is that the same as the Guardian thing? We've got Bring the Battle. Enemies taunted by you take 20% increased damage. Enemies taunted by you deal 20% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets. War cries have infinite power. Okay. And then the rest of this stuff is links. We got Field Medicine. Magic utility flasks applied to you have 40% increased effect. Well, that's insane on its own. Non-unique utility flasks you use apply to linked targets. Well, if you have a Mage Blood, this is just like 40% extra flasks effect. That's crazy. +5 to level of all linked skill gems. Lose no XP when you die because a linked target died. Interesting. Then there's also Absolution. Curses are inflicted on you instead of linked targets. 40% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills while you have a linked target. So you can get increased effect of one of your auras that you get from this. But you have to have a linked target. As a pretty solo player, not much I get out of linked gems, but using Mage Blood is fun. And bonus effect of utility flasks is pretty insane if you wanted to slap that on there. There's definitely stuff here if you're playing solo. The Light of Divinity, Elemental Valiance, Consecrated Ground. Level 30 aura you can't put on an Enlighten, so while you get bonus levels out of it, it's a little more rough to use. And yeah, the Mage Blood possibilities. I don't like this. Enemies taunted by you deal less damage with hits and ailments against other targets, but the infinite power war cries is interesting. I'm sure I could make something good out of it, but kind of meh. Aristocrat. Born with a silver spoon in their mouth, the aristocrat had access to the finest education in Orioth. Starting one step ahead in life grants the aristocrat more passive skill points than any other class. Alright, let's see. You're forced into inherited fortune. grants 5 passive skill points. And it looks like the small ones are grant 1 passive skill point. So that is cool. Like right off the bat, like what you can do with extra passives is pretty amazing. So going to the bottom here, there's 3 different options. Private tuition, cannot be shocked if int is higher than strength, 30% increased intelligence. Illicit gains, cannot be ignited if strength is higher than dex, 30% increased strength. And cannot be frozen if dex is higher than intelligence, 30% increased dex. So if you want to do an attribute stacker, there's a lot of value there. Then Dreadful Attitude. Items and gems have 25% reduced attribute requirements, 5% increased damage per 5 of your lowest attribute. Okay. On the top side, Family Heirlooms, +1 to level of all skill gems, +3 to level of all non-exceptional support gems, so no bonus levels for Enhance, Enlighten, Empower. Might be useful while leveling Awakened gems, because they usually have benefits at level 5, but beyond that, don't know how useful that one is. And then Centerpiece, 15% to quality of all skill gems. There is massive potential there. I'm not one to really go towards attribute stackers normally, but this seems pretty awesome. And there's freeze immunity if you stack dex higher than int. Oh, and shock immunity if you stack... Okay, so if you don't worry too much about strength, go big into dex int, but you need the dex to be higher than the int, then you're shock and freeze immune. Could be fun to mess around with, without a doubt. That takes us to a Templar. Architect of Chaos. A budding Vaal architect, this disciple of chaos experiments with all the deepest secrets of the Vaal. Many of his powers come with a cost. The architect benefits from employing multiple Vaal skills in their arsenal and enhances equipped corrupted items. Alright, let's see here. Dissolution. Removes all energy shield. Life that would be lost by taking damage is instead reserved until you take no damage to life for 1 second. Forbidden Secrets. Everlasting Sacrifice and Shepherd of Souls. Everlasting Sacrifice. When you reach full energy shield, sacrifice all ES to gain 5 all max res for 4 seconds. Shepherd of Souls. Vaal non-aura skills have 80% less soul cost and have increased soul cost per Vaal skill used in the past 8 seconds. So you could not use Forbidden Secrets with Dissolution, because it removes all energy shield. You need to be able to build up the energy shield to sacrifice it for extra max res. Impure Blood. Skills cost life instead of mana. Hewn Flesh. Skills reserve life instead of mana. 100% increased life reservation efficiency of skills. You get a free aura out of this by using the Eternal Blessing, but you don't have to put the gem on it that really increases the cost of reserving stuff on your life. And it looks like this is another one-off here. Glimpse Chaos. 8% increased max life for each corrupted item equipped. 12% max ES per corrupted item equipped. -4 to all resistance for each corrupted item equipped. I've done a build like this before, and you could double down on that with a Shadow Stitch, getting more life and energy shield for corrupted item, but also getting less resistances for corrupted item. This was a unique only character as well that I used with Winter Orb, but you get this chest by corrupting a sacrificial garb that drops off of Atziri on the double corrupt temple. I think it's like a 1 in 4 chance it'll give you a 6 link of a Shadow Stitch. I almost had resistances capped up on this, but there's a roll on this for -6 to -4 all resistances. Running Purity of Elements to give a bunch of resistances. I feel like you'd have to do that with something like this, because you have to counter the reduction to all res. But Shadow Stitch is a fun option to add into this, get even more life and energy shield, but double down on the resistance loss. Very interesting. Could be fun to play around with. The you need corrupted items. Be hard to like really do a lot with that early on. Then there's Vaal skill things. Fever for Corruption, 50% increased Vaal skill effect duration. Vaal skills require 50% reduced souls per use. And Depose Order has reduced soul gain prevention duration with 286% increased Vaal skill critical strike chance. So both of these are big buffs to Vaal skills. And then Chaos Reigns +3 to all Vaal skill gems. Okay, that's cool. I think the Vaal skill I like the most is Volcaustic Arrow. Getting increased duration, plus 3 levels on that would be pretty awesome. There's also a Templar though, so you gotta start on that side of the tree. There's lots of different Vol skills though. Though the Glimpse Chaos I think is the most interesting about this. It'd be fun to like see what can be done with the Shadow Stitch plus that. This might be something I work towards. Not something I'd want to start. But I'm also not early on in a league ever going after Atziri or Incursion, so that'd be like cool to like say I want to go get that Shadow Stitch and see what it has on it, because like you're gonna get 2 implicits there. So this one gave me projectile gems, and I think it was at that point that I said, okay, let's try Winter Orb. So you really don't know what you're gonna have to play with until you have the Shadow Stitch, unless you're playing a trade and just wanted to buy one. But there's a ton of armor, evasion, energy shield on this. This passive tree looks insane on this character too. Pushes up to the top, and I guess it probably had these things in here. But I got a Hex Master thing to get Heart of Ice and Breath of Rime up there. But then I path all the way down through all this to get up here for Elemental Overload. Chaos Res while affected by Purity of Elements. Really nice. And I got all the skill effect duration for the Winter Orb. But then you get increased effect of your auras to get more resistances out of the Purity of Elements. Very intrigued. Let's move on. We got Polytheist. After a crisis of faith, this Templar has decided to devote his worship between several of Rayclath's pantheon of deities, with the aim of finding a new purpose in life. Powers familiar to each of the gods will be yours if you choose to pursue their paths. Oh boy. Oh, there's Devout of Rislata. Enemies you've hit recently have 100% reduced life regeneration rate and 30% more max attack damage. Okay. Got 10 to max cold res, cannot be frozen. Devout of the Brine King. That's a very strong node. Devout of Gruthcool, plus 300 to max life, 8% regen per second. Spells deal no damage, spells are disabled. It's a lot of life and regen, and the max cold res, really cool. Devout of Ralikesh, plus 3 minimum endurance, frenzy, and power charges. That's really strong. Devout of Lunaris, spells fire 2 additional projectiles. Nova spells cast at targeted location instead of around you. Okay. Devout of Ugal, Hex Reflection. Your hexes can affect hexproof enemies immune to reflected damage. Oh, so this would be really good for self-flagellation, which increases your damage based on the number of curses on you. Soul Mantle applies curses to you, and you can reflect them. And you don't have to be forced into Atziri's mirror in order to do this. Interesting. I like this. Devout of Ugal. Devout of Garkon. 100% increased evasion rating while moving. Immune to burning ground, shocked ground, and chilled ground. Regenerate 4% life while moving. 100% increased mana regen while moving. Interesting. Devout of Solaris. Nearby enemies are blinded. 100% increased critical strike chance against blinded enemies. Enemies blinded by you have 100% reduced critical strike chance. Ooh, there's a lot of cool stuff here. Devout of Aberath. Burning Hoof Prince triggers level 20 Aberath's Fury. Wow, there's a lot of options here. There's plus 10 max cold res with an Aegis Aurora and the jewel from Eater to make your max res apply to all max res, get you like max res capped up easily, and you cannot be frozen. Minimum charges is really insane. Plus 2 spell projectiles is insane. Hex reflection's insane. Oh man. Immunity to the ground effects is insane. This seems really strong. I think the hex reflection's the most enabling though. What else we got here? 2 to go. This Templar has desecrated the Holy Order by experimenting with undead in his secret laboratory. His aim is reanimation, to command an army of flesh puppets to undertake his foul bidding. Hex Bearer, you can apply additional curse. Hex is transferred to all enemies within 3 meters when hexed enemy dies. Gain 20% of maximum life as extra max ES. Minions gain 20% max life as extra ES. Marination. Innervating Presence. Nearby enemy monsters have at least 20% of life reserved. Whoa, that's really strong. And when you pair that with a Calling Strike, enemies effectively only have 70% of their HP. Pretty wild. We got Putrid Conscription. Your minions spread caustic ground on death, dealing 30% of their maximum life as chaos damage per second. Ooh, wow, that seems strong. Rotting Might. Half of your strength is added to your minions. 25% increased strength, so that would give them extra life. Melee physical damage. Feeding Frenzy. Minions base attack crit chance is equal to crit chance of your main hand weapon. Minions are aggressive, which gives them better targeting. Marionettes. Weapons you animate create an additional copy. Animated Guardian deals 25% increased damage per animated weapon. Animated minions' melee attacks deal splash damage to surrounding targets. Defenses of items attached to Animated Guardian also apply to animated weapons. What? That's insane. Very cool. Graveyard Shift. For each nearby corpse, 1% increased movement speed. Raised Zombie does not require a corpse. Your raised zombies count as corpses. What? So you could detonate dead on the zombie? That's cool. Then would increasing the minion life then increase your detonate dead damage? Is it based on the zombie's life? And there's Flesh Puppets. +4 to level of all raised zombie gems. And 25% increased raised zombie size. This is very cool. I really like this. There's a lot of cool stuff here. And I'm not a minion guy, but the idea of playing around with the Animate Guardian and Animate Weapons seems really cool. The zombie stuff seems cool. Get Feeding Frenzy without having to use the gym. Reserving nearby monster, like, oh my god. There's a lot of cool stuff here. That just leaves the Scion. Scavenger. This Scion has happened upon a heap of trash discarded by other exiles. But for what reason? What exile could look at these curios and think they weren't incredibly valuable? Well, it's hers now. Just decide which to take, as she can't carry them all. So it looks like you start here. You need 3 points to get to this left cluster. And these are named after uniques. Cloak of Flame, Fizz taken as fire. That's really cool. Stasis Prison, 50% damage taken, recoup his life, debuffs expire faster. Fox Shade, movement speed on full life. Damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while on full life, and extra evasion on full life. Chaos damage does not bypass energy shield. That's really unique. And Blunderbore, 40% increased effect of shrine buffs on you. You have lesser brutal shrine and lesser massive shrine buffs. Okay, so you're forced into this, so you pick one of these. And then you could get up to 6 Ascendancy points and get the top or bottom. And then with your Eternal Lab, you could get to the ones out here at the end, which these are all amulets. These are all chests. These are all amulets at the end. Zerfie's Heart, chaos damage can ignite, chill, and shock. Death Rush, gain adrenaline for 5 seconds on kill. Leadership's Price. You have Scorching Conflux, Brittle Conflux, and Sapping Conflux, while your 2 highest attributes are equal. Cannot ignite, chill, or freeze, or shock. Cursed enemies cannot inflict elemental ailments on you. Dodre's Tongue, Fury Valve, skills fire 2 additional projectiles. Modifiers to number of projectiles instead apply to the number of targets projectiles split towards. Or Tainted Pact, taking chaos damage over time heals you instead while leeching life. So what about top and bottom? So these look like spell-based weapons. Nycta's Lantern gives you Battle Mage, increased light radius, but you don't have to wield the Nycta's Lantern. Okay, so this can give you Battle Mage. Oh, I love playing with Battle Mage. Cerberus Limb, +1 ES per 5 armor on shield, +5 armor per 5 evasion on shield, +20 evasion per 5 ES on shield, 0.5% spell damage leeches life if equipped shield has at least 30% chance to block. Midnight Bargain, +3 max number of summoned phantasms, +1 specter, +2 zombie, +2 skeletons, +3 SRS. Obliteration, enemies you kill have a 30% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their max life as chaos damage. Void Battery, +1 max power charges, increased spell damage per power charge. In the Fulcrum, 25% of physical damage converted to fire, cold, and lightning. Elemental ailments you inflict are reflected to you. Okay, so that's all spell stuff. So the bottom are weapons. Yep. Sinvecta's Metal, 2% AoE per 25 rampage kills. Gain Frenzy Charge every 50th rampage kill and rampage. Insufficient mana doesn't prevent your melee attacks. Your physical damage can chill from the Soul Taker. Gain 20% of weapon physical damage as extra of each element for Doomfletch. Oro Sacrifice, Culling Strike against burning enemies, gain a frenzy charge if attack ignites an enemy. Starforge, your physical damage can shock, 20% increased AoE for attacks. And Tahoa's Felling, trigger level 20, Tahoa is chosen when you attack with a non-ball slam or strike skill near an enemy. So if you had a Starforge, you could apply Doomfletch to it, which gives you 20% Fizz's extra fire, cold, and lightning. Well, the only one of these Ascendancy classes that I really wasn't interested in at all is probably the Paladin, honestly. That's the one for link skills, the one, like, if you have a party, you might want somebody playing a Paladin. But otherwise, all these seem pretty cool. The fishing rod thing is weird, but it seems fantastic for somebody like me who likes to experiment and play and see what I can do. I think the Scion's kind of busted. You can't take nodes from the top and the bottom, though, because of the way the Ascendancy nodes are here. It takes 6 to get to either one of these, and the last 2 go for the amulet. In addition, the Atlas passive tree in this event, and this event only, has been replaced by a new system. As you progress through the endgame, you'll find idols, which can be placed into a new tab on the map receptacle UI to modify your maps. Find out more about the idol system here. Note to item filter creators, use the new class idol to support idols in your filters. Cool. So this here is what this looks like. You can put idols in here to affect your maps. And there are 12 of these blocked nodes that you can unlock the same way you get your favored map slots. Magic idols can have up to 2 modifiers, rare idols can have up to 4, and there are unique idols for keystones from the Atlas passive skill tree. Idols are tradable, but they are not modifiable. So what they drop is what they give. This one has Abyss Cracks, have 5% chance to spawn all monsters as magic. Delirium increases faster with distance from mirror. Your maps which contain breaches have chance for 3 additional breaches. And maps have 33% chance to contain Einhar on this. This unique one has crop rotation. This is a pretty drastic change to how endgame will play, given the Atlas tree has been such a fundamental part of endgame for some time in many different formats and versions. One of the major changes is that it turns specializing into different leagues to be less deterministic because it relies on you finding items. On the other hand, it adds a layer of excitement to item drops in the endgame not previously there. This allows you to have an infinite number of different in-game loadouts for content. No more respecting your tree at all. Now just take out the idols you don't want and put in the ones you do. You'll probably end up with a set of idols for each league. This is cool. With the Atlas tree, you can only get so much of a given stat because of how much of it we put on the tree. But with this system, you can get a lot more of certain things, pushing limits and boundaries further than ever. For example, if you want to have all essences on monsters be at the highest tier possible, or much higher number of blueprints, you find to be fully revealed. 53% chance for Legion encounter, 5% chance for strong boxes to be openable again, and at least 1 essence at the highest possible tier, 6% blueprints to be fully revealed, ritual altars allow re-rolling favors an additional time, 2% chance to get a free use of a special map crafting option. Given that this is an opportunity for us to let you play with more developmental concepts, you can rest assured you'll find a bunch of broken outcomes in true Path of Exile fashion. Full disclosure, due to these features being experimental for this event, we haven't done the layers of quality of life that we would normally try to do to accompany it. For example, you would want different inventories for different league sets or loadouts, but instead during this event, you will simply have to do the inventory management yourself. Based on the popularity of the system, we can add more of these features in the future to streamline it to minimize item micromanagement. Given that players afterwards will likely want to experiment with the Ascendancy classes or the alternate in-game mechanic individually, we will be adding both of these as private league options sometime after the event. We'll be posting full details later this week, which we just got. Rewards. By reaching level 20, 40, 60, and 80 in the event, you'll be able to earn pieces of the Autumn Night Armor set. Boots, gloves, body armor, and helmet respectively. Just like regular Challenge League rewards, the Autumn Night Armor set is earned exclusively in this event. It will not be available for purchase. It will also be available for use in PoE 2 if earned. That's what it looks like. Twitch drops. For the first week, watching 2 hours on Twitch will get you the Havenwood Cloak that perfectly accompanies the Autumn Night Armor set. I wish I could stream, because I don't get any of the benefit of being able to have drops enabled on my stream, because I can't stream, sadly. When the event begins on February 20th, just create a new character in either Standard or Hardcore Legacy of Phrecia event on the character selection screen. If you want to play SSF or Ruthless, don't forget to select those options on the screen. Frequently asked questions. Will the Legacy of Phrecia event run on all platforms? Yes. PC and console. You need to make a new character. You can change your Ascendancy class. You cannot receive multiple Autumn Night armor sets by leveling multiple characters. Will you consider extending the event? 1 month feels like a lot enough time to try everything out. We will consider extending the event based on its popularity, but we will also be adding alternate Ascendancy classes and idols to Endgame as private leagues options sometime after the event, so you can experiment with them as long as you want. Will the ongoing Necro Settlers event end when Legacy of Phrecia begins? Yes. Alright, and that is Legacy of Phrecia, which will start up next week. I will probably go hard in that for the entire duration of it, because I like to tinker and play, and there's 19 new Ascendancies to tinker and play with. So I'll probably play this in SSF. If I play this in trade, I'd probably have to make a new build every 4 days, because I'd just be able to like acquire things, but then I'd have to farm for currency, and I'd rather play SSF so that I can just like see what I find. And it's like, okay, let's smash these things together with this build and see what we can do. That's the way I really like to play PoE. I have no idea which of the Ascendancies I want to play, but maybe I'll have an idea. I feel like Servant of Arakaali is probably where I'd go. The aspect of the spider, envy, all this stuff, just being able to get that for free seems really strong, and that'd be fun. I know looking at this is gonna work. It's gonna be strong. Play in like any poison build you want. Be a good league starter to start building up all the idols and stuff, and then maybe go experimenting with other things later. But I'm curious what Ascendancy class you think you are going to play in the event. There's a lot of really cool stuff. But that is going to be it for this video. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss more videos from me. If you'd like to help support my channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon just below the video, or by joining to become a member. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.